Welcome back to Hours In, an exploration of free games, demos, and more. Today, we're clocking in for another shift of Arcade Paradise. If you haven't yet seen the first part of this episode, which covers the basics and the first 3 hours of gameplay, a link to it, as well as more information, can be found in the description of this video. If you're set on jumping in here, though, I'll summarize the basics quickly. In Arcade Paradise, we play as a young entrepreneur tasked with running our father's laundromat that has what starts as a small arcade in the back room. Gradually, we expand our collection of cabinets until what was once a small curiosity in the back closet becomes the cornerstone of an arcade empire. Here's some things you might do during a shift at the King Wash. Collect and dispose of all the trash you find. Pick up, wash, dry, then drop off a customer's laundry. Faster equals more monies. Unclog the toilet. Collect cash from the hoppers and deposit into the safe for later spending. AOL Instant Messenger your family and advance the story. And finally, play some surprisingly good arcade games. There's also some arcade management type stuff, like moving the less popular machines to be closer to the high traffic ones to earn more money, playing around with the settings of each game, like price, difficulty, and whatnot, to make them earn more, or completing certain goals within the games themselves to increase their popularity. Now that you're refreshed on the basics, and while we're on the subject of goals, last time I mentioned that you could complete rotating daily tasks to earn the game's secondary currency, British pounds, and use said currency to purchase productivity upgrades. I completed as many of these tasks as I could every day. They range from fairly easy as in walk to the end of the street, to fairly difficult as in get a score of 40,000 in blockchain. Maybe I'm just not very good at blockchain. Eventually, I did manage to save up enough to get the beginner's guide to space and time, however. With this upgrade, actual time passes much slower than normal, meaning you have much more time to play games, do laundry, complete more daily tasks, whatever. I will say that while having this time bending active, the days can start to feel like a bit of a slog to get through. Thankfully, though, it can be toggled off and on from the upgrade section of your PDA. Back to domestic dollars. With our new mastery of time, we find ourselves earning much more money than before, since we can do twice the amount of activities that earn said money, and we're quickly able to purchase all of the machines that are currently available to us. Once we do that, our sister stops appearing offline and fast-tracks the permits for expanding our arcade even more. Once we come up with the cash, the permalock storage room gets knocked down, and our arcade gets even bigger. And incidentally, our selection of games to put in it also gets bigger. While we're on the subject of games, let me talk about a few of my favorites from the new ones. Zombat 2. Well, not technically new, I didn't get around to it in the last video. Zombies keep coming and we keep shooting, using the mouse to aim and WASD to move. There's also grenades and shops to upgrade your weapons along the way. This is what I, someone who has never played Vampire Survivors, imagines Vampire Survivors to be like. Actually, this is also a good place to mention something that I don't think I touched on last time. Some of the arcade games actually have multiplayer. Selecting the multiplayer option when available seems to prompt you to connect the appropriate number of controllers. I may have to strong-arm some friends and family to try this with me for a future video. I mentioned the multiplayer stuff here since Zombat 2 is one of the multiplayerable titles. Space Race Simulator. I don't know exactly what I was expecting when I bought this game. Its price was almost 2 times the cost of any other machine that I'd seen before, and the look of it and the title had me thinking that it was a sort of F-Zero pod racing type game, and I suppose it is, but when I booted it up for the first time and saw that you could pick the music, you might see where I'm going here. This game reminds me so much of Outrun, one of my favorite arcades of all time. Change out the Ferrari Testarossa for a land speeder, and you've got Space Race Simulator. left mouse to accelerate, WASD to steer, right mouse to brake and drift. And for those wondering, you can actually drift repeatedly to snake like you would in some of the Mario Kart games, but it's risky. Apparently you can use the spacebar for nitro and upgrade your craft over time, but I haven't come across either yet. Like Outrun, it's a race against the clock. Time is always ticking down, and passing checkpoints grants you additional time. UFO Assault. This one plays sort of like a Missile Command Space Invaders game, with the twist being that you play the invading enemies attacking the planet instead of defending it. Apparently this game is sort of a reference to a VIC-20 game called Blitz, though despite having a C64 as a kid, I'm not as familiar with the Commodore library as I'd like to be, so I've never actually tried it. Your ship flies from left to right, while lowering down slightly each loop. You drop bombs on the buildings to destroy the upper floors and lower their height so you don't crash into them on the next loop. Probably best to destroy the tallest buildings first, since you can always come back for the smaller ones later. Don't be too trigger happy with the bombs either. You can only drop them so fast. There was a couple of times where I only had 1 or 2 dangerously tall buildings towards the right of my screen, and while I was busy styling on some of the smaller buildings, I missed the interval where I could drop bombs onto the dangerous towers. Obviously, this resulted in my death. That also reminds me, I had my first arcade game break down. After being alerted by my watch that Racer Chaser had broken down, I went over to check it out. When a game is broken down, instead of displaying its attract mode demo, it shows a sort of troubleshooting diagnostic screen and the phrase, "Call attendant." That's me. Hitting E on a broken down cab will launch you into another minigame where you target, then flick off game bugs, cockroaches I think. Once those pesky bugs are gone, the game is fixed. So far, this has only happened to me twice, but I assume the breakdowns will increase as the difficulty continues to increase. So, with 3 more hours in, what's changed? What else did I forget to mention last time? Do I still recommend Arcade Paradise? As I alluded to before, the game's difficulty seems to have been increasing a little bit. I find myself getting worse ranks on the laundry, and trash seems to be appearing more often. Getting worse ranks in the laundry is okay, since I find myself concerned less and less with rushing out the laundry now that the larger amount of our income comes from the arcade machines. I do still try to keep the laundromat as tidy as I can, since the machines getting a cleanliness bonus is always good. But I might purchase the garbage bag upgrade to prevent having to run to the dumpster 3 times each morning. I will also say that these last 3 hours, I did start to find some of the day-to-day getting a little bit tedious, especially the laundry. Though as I say, I find the laundry to be less important at this stage of the game anyway. I mostly focus on trash collecting, completing the daily tasks, and playing the games right now, and I'm still enjoying it. I do think that if any of what you've seen here appeals to you even a little bit, especially if you're a retro arcade fan, you should at least put a few hours in of your own. I think I will finish this one, or at the very least clock in another couple of shifts, then reassess. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. You've been watching Hours In.